Hello? So I have been swapping Linux tablets or Linux handhelds for a bit, and I'm coming back around to the PocketCHIP. The instant handy keyboard is great for getting stuff out of my head as quickly as possible. The battery life is excellent for covering just being ready, I guess. I redid the SD card on the Raspberry Pi 3B plus whatever, the full-size Raspberry Pi tablet, and while I love the screen, it's a really nice screen. I just can't I can't get that. I can't trust it to stay on. I can't trust it to be alive when I come back to it. I'm just like running from charger to charger, and that's with a 50,000 milliamp hour or a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. So I guess it's just not designed for, well, I know it's not designed for battery use, but I just wish it was. The next step is probably going to be getting this 50 or 5,000 milliamp hour battery and running a 0 on it, because I would be I would be surprised if the Raspberry Pi Zero required the same amount of amps and the same voltage. I think I can get away with more with the Raspberry Pi Zero. Oh, I should look at the charging circuits for the handhelds, the retro gamer handhelds, because the retro gamer handhelds frequently use the Raspberry Pi Zero, and they use a charging circuit. They don't use the Power Boost 1000C. I know some of them do, but I know they complain about the whine, which I can confirm. When it's charging, it whines, but it does not drop voltage. That's for sure. Plugging in USB devices, though, I don't recall, actually. Yeah, and I don't know that they'd be plugging in USB device. No, forget it. We're not going to worry about that right now. We just want some battery life and some consistent performance. I got to look at those projects. Arturo182 has on Twitter, has a Pi LoRa or Raspberry Pi PCB with a BlackBerry keyboard integrated, and from what I understand, he's sending units out. But I'm not an early adopter, and as interested as I am in having one, I feel a bit off about it. He's had some fixes and some things that need to be tweaked, and instead of, I have misgivings, let's just say that. There's no reason to get in his grill. He's doing a great job. He's doing way better than I'm doing. But there was someone else who'd had these buttons. They were little like soft touch buttons, and he was using those to set up. I need to leaf through all those projects again, because if I had a keyboard, I talked about putting this together, like a host, a Raspberry Pi host PCB with a keyboard attached, and you could do a full separate controller, because I think that's well, frankly, that's the simple way to do it. I don't like the custom firmware for everything, because otherwise the Raspberry Pi has to handle the keyboard polling. via like SPI or something like that, and that's not. I'm not very familiar with that, and I don't really like that. But a screen and a Raspberry Pi Zero and an attached keyboard, which really just like kind of a palm keyboard. I had talked about this before. If I make a small form factor keyboard, I can do pretty much whatever I want with it. I mean, I can I mean, the trick is to run it off a separate controller, because then you can plug it into whatever you want. I mean, it doesn't matter, and you can reprogram the keyboard however you want, so you don't have to worry about Xmod map or any of that nonsense. You can have a full keyboard. And then the idea was to have the keyboard as, like, this would be the keyboard sticking up here, and then the back is right here, and then it would have a plug sticking up, and then the unit with the Raspberry Pi and in this case the integrated battery would slide on top of that, and then the whole unit would fit together. However, no, it would have to be a separate charging circuit. Shoot. Yeah, I don't know. Like, the idea was to be able to have laptop floating around here. There we are. The idea was to be able to have this PocketCHIP, and then to be able to, like, shoop, like, break off the keyboard, and then have the Raspberry Pi and the display and the battery as one unit. And then when that unit is separate, it can, you know, you can put it in your pocket, carry it around, and it'll still have a USB port sticking out the bottom. And then you can bring it with you and then take a keyboard and plug straight into it, or you can bring the attached keyboard, which would almost be like a caddy. So the keyboard would be like this, and then it would have like a support on the back of it, and then that whole unit would slide on top. There are a couple of designs that did something like that. It wasn't the Pi Cube. It was some kind of Python modular system. I think Adafruit had them for a while. I love Adafruit's stuff. They just, like, they get sick of it, or I don't know, that they don't have a lot of funding or something. They keep cycling through hardware, and that's the other thing. Is I want this to be accessible. I want people to be able to make these. I don't want them to go, well, you know, we need this part from Adafruit, and oh, it's been 2 years, so they no longer carry that. Well, now we have to come up with an alternative. And the idea of having that pocket computer and then just having a supportive keyboard that all you do is, you know, it just has a the keyboard would basically have a USB type A connector, a male connector sticking out of it, and then you would slide it on so that the female connector just clicks right onto it. Everything's aligned. I would also like to note that all of this has very little to do with mechanical keyboards. Because originally this was going to be inside a mechanical keyboard, and I suppose it still could be. I mean, the mechanical keyboard could be just a housing, but I want, like, USB switching built into it, and make it a host keyboard, you know, be able to switch the outputs from one device to the other device and all that. That's just... I don't know, man. That's why I'm just trying stuff. I'm just carrying stuff. I'll bring stuff with me. I'll try it. If I get super annoyed with it, I'll put it away. I'll try to use it. I'll pretend it's as good as I want it to be. And when I run into problems, I'll complain about them. And I'll switch to another one. Because, like, having the Raspberry Pi touchscreen tablet altogether like that, I was just fine. He says as he cringes. It was just fine, but like in my gut, I was like, I don't know what I want to put on this. Like, I don't trust it. And if it were the only device I had and I used it for 3 weeks, like I forced myself, I might be able to reset that, but I just didn't trust it. And yet the PocketCHIP is just sitting here chugging away, having a nice comfy keyboard, a lightweight computer, also full like serial connection with these header pins. It's really, really just brilliant, and it's just a shame. I don't know, I'm almost to the point where I might consider, like, are people being squished? Like, the Raspberry Pi is not designed for portability. It has no like energy efficient mode. It doesn't support any kind of sleeping. It's just not designed for it. I can't really point the finger at them. They're trying to make computers for kids, inexpensive computers that are accessible. But there's so many other dead Linux handheld projects. And I guess we'll really know the truth after Purism comes out with their phone, or whatever their name is, or their Pure Phone, or their whatever. Which, I mean, they've got dev kits out right now, so like it's there. I think the Raspberry Pi Zero on the 5,000 milliamp hour battery is going to not brown out, not die overnight, and I think that's going to solve most of the problems. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. That's also interesting. So, the Raspberry Pi Zero in particular has always had the potential for having a severely reduced footprint in the case that you get full GPIO, a completely GPIO controlled screen, which is totally fine. And there are high quality units such as the Hyperpixel that are more available now than they used to be. They kind of came and then went and then came back, so that's cool. Where am I parking? But I mean, you can put a Raspberry Pi almost completely up against that Hyperpixel. It is as flat as the screen, basically. And as long as the heat doesn't get to it, which I don't imagine would be the case, because lots of people are doing this, that should be fine. Sticking that on top of one of those thick boy batteries is still pocketable. Yeah. It's just a matter of mass, I guess. I'm gonna look at the N900s again. I do feel a little bit better with this PocketCHIP because I'm not supposed to go here. Bugger. last night I had like one of those as I was sleeping ideas that I had to get out of my brain, and I grabbed the PocketCHIP and turned it on, or I didn't turn it on, I touched the screen, you know, and this backlight turns on and it's ready to go, and the keyboard's not backlit, so I had a little e-reader reading lamp that I kind of clipped on, and I turned that on, and I was able to type better. If I practice with the PocketCHIP, I can get pretty good at touch typing. But the point was, it was on. It stayed through the night. It was at like 50% after in the morning, totally fine. And it was ready. And with a little bit of keyboard backlighting or keyboard lighting, which I can even power a little lamp off of it that'll light the keyboard, but I have to light from the top, which is a little weird. Anyways, it would be great. It would be, I don't want to say the P word, it might be perfect. I would want the footprint a little bit reduced, but I don't know. But that's what got me thinking of the N900, is having a backlit, you know, little fold-out keyboard. I had a Windows, not an N900, what was it? It's like a PC 4240, I think. No, I'm confusing that number. Never mind. It's like a Pocket PC. It looked like a Palm Trio, but you would slide it and then turn it landscape, and you would have a keyboard. And the keyboard sucked, but it was a keyboard, and the battery life was all right. And that was running, I think that was running some version of Windows. I mean, it's hard to say I can't just putty that thing. And at this point, all it needs is Wi-Fi. Like, if it lacks cell network, if the cell antenna is so old it can't connect to a cell network, that's a feature. I'm down with that. I probably would have pulled the antenna out anyway. Like, that's where I want to be. These cell phones have great hardware. It's just like, has other baggage. All right, now I'm where I'm supposed to be.